They say that some hearts aren't broken, they are just frozen. To protect themselves from the pain of the world, they build walls of ice so thick and so cold that even the sun cannot reach them. But a heart that cannot feel pain is a heart that has forgotten how to beat. Story 11. The Echo of a Frozen Heart. In the far north, where the stars look like shards of glass, stood the Palace of Mirrors. It was a castle made entirely of ice, beautiful and terrifying. Inside lived Lord Silas, a man who had traded his warmth for eternal life. He didn't age, he didn't bleed, and he never cried. He was as perfect and as cold as the sculptures he carved from the frozen lake. Silas lived in silence. He believed that emotions were weaknesses, fire that only burned the soul. Ice is peace, he would whisper to the frozen halls. In the ice, nothing changes, nothing dies. One winter night, a woman named Clara arrived at the palace gates. She wasn't a princess or a warrior. She was a wanderer who carried a small, flickering lantern. She had lost her way in the blizzard and was shivering so hard that her breath came out in silver clouds. Silas looked at her through the walls of ice. He didn't want to let her in. Her warmth felt like a threat to his silent world. But something in the way she held her lantern, protecting that tiny flame with her frozen fingers, reminded him of a dream he had 1,000 years ago. He opened the heavy crystal doors. "You will freeze here," Silas said, his voice like the cracking of a glacier. "There is no fire in this palace, only mirrors." Clara looked at him, her eyes filled with a strange kindness. "A palace of mirrors is a lonely place, my lord. You see yourself everywhere, but you see no one else." For weeks, Clara stayed. She didn't try to build a fire. Instead, she talked to him. She told him about the smell of rain on hot summer streets, the taste of a ripe peach, and the way it feels to hold someone's hand when you're scared. Silas watched her. He saw her face getting paler every day because of the cold. He realized that she was dying to stay near him. One evening, he found her slumped against a pillar of ice, her lantern almost out. "Why don't you leave?" Silas shouted, a strange ache beginning to pulse in his chest. "You are human. You are fragile. You belong in the sun." Clara smiled weakly. "The sun is easy, Silas, but I'd rather be cold with you than warm without you." At that moment, the ice in Silas's chest did something it hadn't done in centuries. It cracked. A single tear, hot and heavy, fell from his eye and hit the frozen floor. Where the tear touched the ice, a small green sprout began to grow. Silas picked her up, and for the first time, he felt her heart beating against his. It was fast, like a trapped bird. He realized that the cold wasn't his protection, it was his prison. He began to weep, and with every tear, the palace of mirrors started to melt. The walls crumbled, the mirrors shattered, and the cold north wind turned into a gentle spring breeze. The palace was gone, replaced by a field of white flowers. Silas was no longer immortal, and he was no longer perfect. He could feel the cold now, but he could also feel the warmth of Clara's hand in his. He had traded a kingdom of ice for a single human heartbeat. Just remember, a life without pain is often a life without love. Don't be so afraid of being hurt that you freeze your soul. It is better to melt and be real than to be perfect and frozen forever. Thanks for watching.